mai hoki mai ki tēnei hōtaka o Pautama Rites of Passage. No mātou anō te hōnore kua whakapiri mai koutou I tēnei rā, kia hui hui tahi ki tēnei pai. Nā reira, e mihi ana kia koutou katoa.
Tēnā tātou e te whānau, nau mai, hoki mai ki tēnei webinaka e kōrero ana mō tēnei kaupapa o te tohi, ki te taho o tō tātou nei kai kōrero o te rānei. Tēnā koe e te kōkā, e te ruanuku, e te ruahine, te tohuka I roto I te ao o te kura kaupapa Māori. Nei rā te mihi kia koe e kōkā Raewyn Rameka.
Tēnā koe, tēnā koutou, mihi ana kia koutou o te rōpū Pautama Rights, ana hoki kia koutou katoa e whakarongo mai ana, e mihi ana.
Tēnā koe te whaia. Welcome to another webinaka, Talking Tohi, with myself, Tiaki Coates, no Kaitahu Whānui, and with my hostess with the mostess, Kiri Lana Whakaangi, all the way over on the wharf at Uawa. Tēnā koe, Kiri.
Tēnā koe, brother.
Tēnei hoki te mihi kia koutou kua hono mai, e mātakitaki mai nei te rānei. If you have any questions, please send them towards the chat area and we'll try and get those answered for you. Anō reire te whaia. Kei te kura koe I te rānei, ne?
Ai, kei te kura hau, kei te kura kaupapa Māori o whakarewa I te reo ki tūwharetoa. Ahau, I tēnei rā, katai anō ka mutu te akoranga toi ki te taha o ngā nohi nohi. Nā reira ko te kairānui I tēnei wā.
Tēnā koe te whaia. You have such an amazing experience in the realm of education. Tēnei te mihi kia koe me tō whakapau kaha ki te hāpai I ka kaupapa Māori roto I te ao o te kura. You've set up homeschools, you've set up kura kaupapa. Your whole life seems to have been around kura and education. Last year, you were in the wahine facilitator training with Kiri and 12 other wahine. So, rites of passage obviously has been something that you've been interested in for a while. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got into this training and what was it about the rites of passage that was calling to you last year?
Okay. Tuatahi, I think I just need to say that I personally haven't set up kura wānanga or kura kaupapa Māori, but I have been a part of the kaupapa from the time my tamariki were born, or even before that. So, yeah, he paku whakatikahanga pā, he oi Pautama. How did I get into the whakangungu last year? I think taku ki te atu I te kaupapa I karanga mai ki au. Kāore au e tino whai I ngā whakangungu pā e whai ana e te tokomaha, he oi ia o te wā ka ki te atu au I tētahi whakangungu ana ka tohu mai ki au. Tērā pā koenei te whakangungu mau. So I think I just, I kind of fall into some of the whakangungu that I do. I feel that it calls to me and tells me that this is the right time for you to come into this whakangungu, and I'm so blessed to have been a part of that whakangungu because it was absolutely beautiful, absolutely everything that I would hope and want for our tamariki, our kohine, our hine, our hineriki, anō hoki ko ngā tama. I know that there is a similar wānanga for ngā tama, but I was very blessed to be a part of the hine whakangungu in Whaingaroa, which I have been there many times to Whaingaroa with other kaupapa. Te aho ko Tuhi. I've been to Te Māori tau for whakangungu, Poutiria te aroha, such beautiful kaupapa. And ehine definitely encompasses all of those teachings as well. So whangaroa always calls to me, he wahanga o tōku whakapapa. Heke mai oku tupuna I kāwhia moana, and I always have a very, I feel a calling to always go back to kāwhia, to whangaroa. So hopefully that's answered your question, a little bit kōtiti. Hi there.
Oka, was it last year as well that your daughter was in that film Hinekura? Was that at the same time of the training?
Yes, it was very similar timing. In fact, good timing. Yes. Yes, my daughter Kahumakor was very, very lucky to be a part of the Hinekura whānau, along with Sunny Arahanga and Bex Arahanga, and very beautiful, beautiful whānau of filmmakers, beautiful people.
So you have a young kohine in your life, or a young wahine, and has that been a big part of your decision to get into rites of passage, watching your kohine grow up?
Yes, definitely. I only have 2 children, Tautahanga, who is 23, and Kahumakor will be 21 this year. But from the time I was first hapu with my son, we decided that, well, in my mind, I made the decision ka Māori tō rātou ao, ka tino marama rātou ki te ao Māori. And along with that, you see the different stages in their lives and note what perhaps isn't there, and what perhaps isn't there for other tamariki Māori, and try and look for the places and spaces and the people groups of people who want the same. And so not just my daughter, my son made a huge impact in the way we have chosen to live the rest of our lives as Māori parents.
Cool, rawe koka. Ia koe kōrero mō ngā āhuatanga Māori hihi ana koe mō tamariki. Were there any sort of rituals that happened along the way that ignited that?
I think it was more the absence of the rituals. When my first child was first born, I lost my mother 10 months later, and you note the loss of females within your life when you're bringing up children. You're new to this thing, bringing up children, and that's what I noticed. So now I didn't have my own mother or her mother to talk to me about the different ways to bring up my children and what sort of rights there were, what things that they did when they were bringing us up, and what types of things happened to them or impacted on them on their growing up as children, as Māori children. So I guess for me it was more noting what was missing, what wasn't around, what wasn't commonplace for my children, other children in our whānau, and then other children that were just a part of our everyday life.
So now that kua pakeke te tokorua, kei roto kura tonu koe, how has this huarahi now helped your babes? You know, being in the kura Māori, te ao Māori, I hihi ana koe, how has that helped them?
Well, that was a that was something that we actually had a lot of problem. We seemed to be swimming opposite the current, it seemed, of what was the norm. So you would always have a tohe within yourself. Are we doing the right thing? Are we doing the right thing? You're seeing the majority of children following a different path, and you have your children going in another. So you always had that tohe, are we doing the right thing? Are we not? Are we doing the right thing? And then in time, it was like, no, we need to make a decision. We are doing the right thing. We're choosing the best that we possibly can for them, whatever the choice is. Whatever the choice, kei te whakapono, ki tēnei huarahi, kei te whakapono, he kākano ngā tamariki i ruia mai i rangi atea e kore e ngaro, me whakapono ki ngā kōrero ngā tūpuna. So we just decided that let's just go with the path that we are taking and understand that actually it's not our doing, it's not our making. We're being guided. We've been guided by our tūpuna. We've been guided by our kaitiaki, help us in our pathway. So I think that that is something that we've instilled in our own children, not just our own children. The tamariki that grew up around us also have that feeling. Our nieces, our nephews, mokopuna, they all have found that understanding of they are a taonga. Their path is the path that they should be taking, and sometimes you may head off in another direction, but it's all your warahi that is a part of your DNA. It's a part of your connection to the taiao. It is everything that you are supposed to be doing at this particular space and time. So I think the children that have grown up with us and around us and who have been ka tino poipoia e te toko maha o ngā pakeke, kei te ora pai rātou, kei te marama pai, ki tērā o ngā whakatauki, he kākano i ruia mai e kore e ngaro.
Tēnā koe. I think through these last segments that we've had through the webinaka of Potama Rites of Passage, we have had a lot of kōrero and inoi come through about how can we start tēnei momo. And already you have shared your experience about how you went about that and created that circle and community for your children, but also the children that were closest to you and those whānau. So for those whānau that are still wanting to kuhu ki tēnei kaupapa o tira, te whakarewa i tēnei mā koutou koto pāhara kike, kua mahia kētia e kōka Raewyn. Nā reira, e mihi ana ki a koe me o kōrero kua whāriki hea.
I guess te tai o ngā kōrero, it's never too late. It is too late to do anything. Just think about how you would like to raise your children. Think about what you would like them to experience in their life and be confident in it. It isn't always an easy path. No matter which way, whatever pathway you choose, there is always ngā piki me ngā heke, heoi ko taua kōrero anō, koe rā ia te huarahi e tika ngā mau i taua wātonu. He wātona ka tīni pā, heoi koe rā te huarahi e tika ngā mo taua wā.
Kia ora.
Oka, thinking about, you know, your experience now raising two beautiful tamariki and now that they've come into their pakeke taka and at the kura as well, what significance do you feel that tohi, or rites of passage, has for tamariki as they come of age, or as they grow up into adulthood?
I think there is a huge significance. It is their right, their DNA right. It's written within their own DNA, you know, their connection to their tūpuna. Two sets of whānau have come together. Two sets of tūpuna have come together. All of that DNA is imprinted in that tamaiti. So it is very, very important for them. It's very important, especially in this day and age, I believe, to walk, to understand who they are, and to move through the different spaces and stages of their life. I roto I tēnei ao huri he nui ngā wero, nā reira kia hoki anō ki tō rātou pūtaketanga ka marama pai rātou, ho wai rātou. Anā he wā tōna ka piki ki tētahi tuāhuatanga ke, anā he tohi mō tērā tūmomo. It's so important in this day and age, and I guess a lot of people worry about whether they have the right mātanga, the right tohunga, the right karakia, all of those types of things. How do I do this? How am I going to create this for my whānau? I'm not a mātanga, I don't have all the karakia, but my intention for my children, for my whānau, for the people around me is pure. It has the essence of everything that we want for our children, for our whānau. So if you don't have those tohunga, those people around you, you're still able to create particular rites that are right for you, different types of tohi that are right for you and your whānau, if your intention and your heart is telling you that this is correct for you and your whānau at this particular time.
Man, I miss you.
Ahau hoki kei te moke au ki a koutou katoa me ngā wāhanga atāhua.
Koka, you know, hine kura, and that was kind of like going back into the time of our tupuna and what that would have been like for a girl coming of age. And you know, what has been your experience of hearing stories or learning about the past of our tupuna and what they would have done at those times?
I guess one kōrero that came out after hine kura, one of my daughter's aunties, my sister-in-law, spoke to me about what her kuia had done with them, or what she had done during time of menstruation. And what she said was that they were taken, and they were really looked after by all of the wahine around them. And they were taken to rocks that were hot and steaming, and my sister-in-law couldn't remember whether there was any type of rau or maramara rākau that were used as a type of kākara, as a type of rongoā, but they used to have to stand over the rocks. And she said that is something that she remembers her kuia talking to her about. And I can just imagine the warmth of that steam rising and entering into the kōpū and just taking away all of that initial pain. Those were some of the things that happened with our wahine in that time, and that was a lot of what hine kura was based on the journey of kōrero, tana huringa ki tōna wahinetanga me te rere o te awa o te atua, te rere o tana ikura. So that was something quite beautiful, which as a whānau, we will rangahau in time, get together and wānanga that kōrero I heke mai I tētahi o ngā kuia o te whānau.
Te awa o te atua. He tino, I roto I tērā kupu, ne? He tino rereke I nei rā, ne? Kāre kore kua kitea I roto I tō whānau, I roto I ka kohine o tō kura. He whakamā nui, he rereke katoa te tirohaka ki tēnei mea, te awa o te atua.
Ai. Koe raia tētahi o ngā wānanga mō ngā kohine, kia rongo rātou he tino taonga te rerenga o te toto, he oranga, he whakawātea, he tuku hoki kia papatuanuku. E te mea ko tāku, tētahi kōrero hoki I rangona e au, te nuinga o te wā ka rere te awa o te atua I te wā o te whiro whiti o te new moon. Ana kaore I te tino nui te wai I roto I a papatuanuku I taua wā. Nā reira koe rā ia te koha mai I te wahine kia papatuanuku. Ana kia whai oranga anō a papatuanuku I te wā e āhua ngingi ia. Ai. So, our kohine, our hine, our beautiful, beautiful taonga need to realise, need to understand and be helped to understand what a gift that is for them. I think ko te matepa, ko te tirohanga o he tirohanga no iwi ke, he paru, he koe rā te mate o te wahine, he momo mā wiwi, awa momo kōrero. Kua roa tātou e rongo ana ki rā ngā kōrero, he oi, ko te painga o tā tātou noho tahi ki te taho ngā kohine, he kōrero ki a rātou mo tōna ātāhua.
Oka, were there elements within the ehine curriculum that you felt were really stood out for you in terms of bringing this from a place of paru, a place of whakamā, to a place of wakanui and tapu?
Definitely. One part of the wānanga that we had was looking at the different phases of hina, of the moon, and how the connection with the wahine, me tōna kōpū, how hina helped to move the toto, te rere, te wai I roto I te wahine. Absolutely beautiful. And if all of our girls could understand that, it would be life-changing for them. Something that I hope will become the norm for all of our kōtiro as they're moving into that space. And then as they carry on into the time of when they get older, when they're thinking about family planning and all of those sorts of things, and te wā o te whakawhānau pipi, he ātāhua ngā kōrero mō hina me tana hononga ki te wahine.
Whakaroe mō tērā kōrero nā chai tuku ne, that the wahine were Kua tohia kia hina marama. Ko ka tāne kia tamanui te rā. A tōna wā ka anō nei he pau whirinaki e nei atua mō tātou o te huka takata.
Hea tāhua ngā kōrero o Che. I whakarongo au ki ana kōrero mo te wā ka heke pēr te wairua, ka taumaha te tāne ana ka maumahara ia. It's imprinted in him from his tohi. The warmth, the brightness, all of the beautiful energy that the sun has, tamanui te rā has. So they will never stay in that darkness. And kia nei he rite mo te wahine, ka titiro ake ki te rangi, ka kite atu ia hina marama me tōna ātāhua. Ahakoa ia te pauri o te pō, ana ka kite I tōna ātāhua, tōna rerehua. He oi, ia pō he rereke tōna ātāhua. Nā reira, ki te raru te wahine, ka titiro noa kia hina me te mōhio he ātāhua. He nui te ātāhua, kei te tīramarama mai, kei te tuku mai I tana koha. A female would be able to look at the different phases, the different stages, the different ahua of the moon every night, shining brightly in the darkness, and always know that there is beauty, that there is light, and it is always different. So you can never feel lost, you can never feel totally in darkness.
It's a reflection, eh?
Yes.
He whakāta kei mua I te kānui, I tai wā ka piata, I tahi wā ka ngū, you know.
I tahi ka tino iti te mata, nā reira he wā tōna kia noho ngū, kia noho tau, he wā tōna ka nui rawa, tōna āhua. And that's the time just to show all of your beauty. Bathe in all of her beauty. Different spaces, different times, and that's how a wahine is. We have all of our different phases, different ahua.
You know, and karere ki hoki te āhua ki konei, ki tō rohe, ki te rohe o tiaki. Aha, ko tahi te, you know, ko kōrero hea, ko pōtapu, ko pōmere, aha, ko tēnā, ka kite te rerekētanga ki tō takiwa. Yeah.
We were just, in the weekend, we had a mentor training, prep with my co-facilitator, George King, and we were talking about that kōrero with Che, and how tāne tērā whakarite ki te rā, tāne like the sun and quite consistent, you know, you can kind of guarantee that kind of, but the wahine, you know, it's always changing and you never know where they're going to rise and what direction, and it's almost, kare mo te whakaiti, he whakanui ke, ia koutou, no mātou te huka tāne. But what do you think about the different rites? You know, you've raised a girl and a boy, and what have you noticed about the differences between tāne and wahine and what they need in terms of a tohi?
The differences. The differences are beautiful, and it's just like tamanui te rā and hina marama. Very beautiful in their own right. Very different, very beautiful. A different type of kaha. I think both are very kaha, very strong, but a different type of strong, a different type of strength. I think that I think that the tohi, there are similarities, but then there are huge differences as well. And I guess there needs to also be times of tohi rights happening where both ira can be a part of that tohi. So there's different tohi for just the female, different tohi for the male, but then there needs to be a time where tohi can happen in the presence of both ira. Because it gives you a great understanding. It's just like how we live our daily lives. Every day, regardless of whether he ira tāne, he ira wahine, te tangata, ka kite tonu ia tamanui te rā, ka kite tonu ia hina marama. So both sexes still are able to see the movement of the sun and the movement of the moon and the different ways in which they both work. So I believe that there should be a time when both sexes are able to be a part of different tohi rights in the same space to get a greater understanding of the other sex. For whatukura, kia marama rātou ki te āhuatanga me te tiaki i te māreikura.
Kia ora.
Anā ka pērā hoki te māreikura, ka kite atu e ngā tū āhuatanga e tika ana mo te tāne, he oi ka kite atu hoki, he pēhea tōna manaaki i te o ngā whatukura. Kia ōrite, rite kia rangi rāua ko papa tuanuku, rite kia tamanui te rā, rāua ko hina marama, he ngātahi, he mahitahi. Ai, koe rā ku whakaro, kare te mōhio ina i whakautu tō pātai.
Kei te whakautu ngā pātai katoa.
Karawe.
Kua pira, ia tātou kōrero mō te ikura, te awa o te atua, ia tātou wānanga, ki te kaupapa o kohine. I puta mai tētahi āhua ki roto i au, me te tino mārama ki te ikura. O tira, nā te mea wāroa, kua taupihi taku ao, i te mea nei, kua paru tēnei momo, e hara i te mea i reira aku mātua hei tiaki, hei arahi i au i tēnei huarahi, nā reira, i tūpina iau i a tātou wānanga ai. Engari, te rongo i ngā kōrero ki a tātou hoa mahi i taua rā, i puta mai te whakaro me te menei, me hoki au ki te kāinga ki e aki i aku tama.
Ai.
Ki tēnei momo. Me aku kōtero engari tīmata ki aku tama. En ko kōrero pēnei au ki aku tama, he, aku ni, ka te kaumāwaru ngā huruhuru, engari ko taku kōrero ki aia, me manaaki i o tuahine i tēnei momo. Te rohia te āhua, whakarite rawa mana, i tira pia he kapu tito sister. Haere te whakarite, tira pia he, tētahi o inei. Haere te whakarite. Tiakina i aia, kia hiki te wairua, kia mōhio, kei te pai tēnei momo ki a tātou ki roto i te whare. So, kua pēnei mātou, nā runga i o kōrero, me ngā kōrero a Auntie Tash.
Ai.
Kua puta mai tēnei marama, he tuku tēnei, kei te pai. Nā reira, i tēnā pūrākau, ka pīhia te whakaako, te whakamārama i tēnei, ki roto i a tātou kura. I te mea, he ngāwari, he māma tēnei whakahaere.
Kia nei he wānanga tahi. Ana ka painga o te wānanga tahi ka puta mai ngā kōrero a tēnā o ngā tāngata. I te mā, kaore au te mōhio ki ngā mea katoa, kaore taku hoa i te mōhio ki ngā mea katoa, engari ina ka āta whakarongo ki tēnā o ngā kōrero o ngā tāngata, ka he maramatanga anō, ka rangona. So working together, talking together, coming together as a whānau, and talking about perhaps how we see what this is, how we experience, how different reanga experienced it, how different sexes experience the way, you know, a son, how he watched his sisters, how he watched his mother going through different phases, daughters in the same space, daughters learning from mums, learning from queer, learning from different people. Everyone has a story, and if you gather all those stories and listen to the beauty of it, or listen to how perhaps your thoughts or what you were taught was totally different to how someone else was taught, then there is a lot of learning in that. There is also he momo whakawātea hoki. Pera ai tau kōrero, I he rereke tō tirohanga I nai nei. Some people need to hear other people's stories. Kia pai ai tō rātou whakawātea I a rātou anō, mai I ngā kōrero e pēhi ana I te tangata, e whakaparu ana I te āhuatanga o tōna hanga, o ngā tuāhuatanga o tōna tinana. So sometimes listening to other people's stories, sitting together and having a wānanga about it, whakawhiti kōrero, you're able to learn, but you're also able to cleanse yourself of perhaps kōrero that isn't ours, kōrero that doesn't belong to us, and perhaps that doesn't make us feel that we are the taonga that we are, and that the taonga that we have received by being the people that we are, he tangata Māori, he tangata, he kākano, kwarere mai I rangiatea. Koe ku whakaro. Mā te wānanga, mā te kōrero tahi, kāko.
Ko kōrero mo te ao pēhi, he aha te ki o whakaro, he aha ka pūtaketaka o te pēhi taka o te tohi me enei kaupapa tuku iho.
Yeah. I think ngā pēhitanga, there has been a lot that has been lost for us. My mother grew up in a generation of change when Kāore whakai ki te reo Māori, he pai ake kia whai I ngā akoranga katoa o te Pākehā. Hei aha tuku atu era o ngā akoranga me huri ki te ao karaitiana hoki, te tahi mea nui. Hare kaore o te whakaiti I te ao karaitiana, kaore o te whakaiti I te Pākehā, awai rānei, heoi, when you are in a time of change where you no longer can be the Indigenous person that is your birthright, perspectives change, way of thinking changes, and things like Tuhi are now no longer relevant. So in times of change like that, possibly a lot can get lost. There is a lot of ka mataku te tangata, e tahi ka whakamā o hea te take me mahi au tēnei mahi, no te au kohatu tērā tumumu mahi, kauri aku hoa e te pērā ai. So there's a whole lot of emotions perhaps, ngā kāre ā-roto, karere I roto I te tangata. Ko te pauri, ko te moke mo ngā akoranga, ngā mōhiotanga ki ngā mea whangaro, kaore I ako. Mo etahi he momo whakamā. So it just changes everything about you when you feel a sense of loss, when you realise that there are some things missing in your life because of taua pēhitanga. Nā reira, he pēhea taku rapu I aua momo akoranga mo aku tamariki, mo aku mokopuna, mo aku mokopuna tuarua. A lot of emotions perhaps have resulted from taua momo pēhitanga.
Poka, what was it like for you as you were growing up, coming into your teenage years?
For me growing up, he Māori tōku māma, he Pākehā tōku pāpā, tino rawe taku whakatipuranga. E rongo a hau ki taku waimarie, mai te wā e nohi a hau, tai noa ki taku te tainga atu ki te kura wainga pā. Kāre o te mōhio he rerekētanga I wainga nui a hau I a mātou ko aku hoa. There was no difference. We were all the same. Life was good. Tino pai. We would go back to the marae, we would go back to tangihana. We lived outside of my mother's iwi, so we would always go back ka noho tahi ki ngā kuia, ki ngā karaua, ki ngā matua keke, he ātāhua. Not until I got to intermediate school at that time, ka tino rongo ki te rerekētanga. Ko au tēnei, not white enough to be Pākehā, not brown enough to be Māori. Nā reira, ko au te rā e rapu ana I aku tangata. Very difficult space to navigate. Heoi, kaore hinga, kaore I raru, engari ki au nei I taua wā, I au I te kura wainga, I tipu te hia kia ao Māori, te ao o tōku ake whānau, a tōna wā.
Were there any tohi or rights for you at that age or just a little bit after as you were coming into your teenage years?
Absolutely nothing. Nothing for me. There was nothing at all like that for myself or my siblings. Although there were many things now that I look back that my mother instilled in us without us even realising. So many things that helped guide me in her absence with my own children. So many lessons, just different things, I'm not sure, I ngā wā, ngā tangihana, te kuhuki, te urupā, ngā momo, katoa, he rerekē ki ngā kōrero i ahu mai te whānau o tōku hoatāne, he rereke, engari, i maumahara tonu au ki ngā akoranga i ako. He wā tōna, eina kaore au i whai i awa akoranga o tōku whaia, he rongo a wairua ka tau mai ki runga i a hau. Hei whaka tika pā i au. Me taku mōhio a tēnā koe, ngā mihi ki tōku whaia, ngā mihi ki oku tūpuna, ki oku kaitiaki, e tiki atu i tōku ringa me te mea mai, ana pika mai, ki tēnei huarahi, anei ngā mahi me mahia e koe. So there were no rights for me, but I feel that I'm walking through those rights right now in different spaces, different times, mai i te whānautanga mai o aku tamariki. They have helped me walk through the rights, possibly not physical where there are people with me, just my own family, but they've helped me walk through etahi tohi a wairua nei, kia kuhu anō ki tētahi āhuatanga anō, kia eke pā ki tētahi taumata anō pā.
About the going at it, we're jumping for the pātai. The tira ka mua, ka muri, looking back but moving forward, thinking about your tamariki and your mokopuna to come as they are coming of age, growing into young men and women someday. Do you have a sense of what that can look like for them?
I do. I often think about the differences in the generations, and I guess there is what you do in your generation as a person, as a Māori, as a person of the land, and all of your connections walking through your space and your lifetime. And then you have your children, and it is different for them. I believe there is improvement every time with each generation. There's room to make improvement. Perhaps look at things that maybe didn't happen for you in your generation. And then, but always looking back to the guiding principles, to the kōrero from your tūpuna, the kōrero that has come through your whānau, always looking back for guidance. And then when it comes to your mokopuna, he kōrero anō tira, he āhuatanga anō tira, hei āta poi i a rātou. So I think it evolves, it changes, everything evolves, changes, but it can't evolve and change if you never look back, if you don't take the guidance and the kōrero that have come down to your whakapapa, mai ngā atua, mai o tūpuna, kei tai ao tonu. That's the way you can move forward. Move forward by looking back, by seeing what the generations have happened, what has happened in each generation, and gathering all of that information and making it evolve to whichever reanga it needs to happen to.
I was just going to ask before Tiaki jumped in was, what did you think about the rā we went for, hikoi?
He a tāhua ngā wahanga katoa o te wānanga. Walking through the ngahere, connecting with everything within the ngahere, going to the water, that is what we all, there is so much oranga, there is so much akoranga, so much oranga, because we know he tuakana a taiao ki a tātou, he tuakana ki te tangata. So taking those walks, looking at all that there was to offer, everyone had a different akoranga in that time. The akoranga wasn't the same. Everyone learnt something different. The tauira that was within the forest, within the ngahere, the tohu that was in the waters was different for everyone. Everyone felt something different. Everyone learnt something different because that was what was right for that person. So it is most important. We are people of the land. We are people of the skies. We always need to connect. We need to connect to our waters. We are mostly water ourselves. We need to connect to our atua, and they're all around us. Most important.
I was just remembering that was one of the times that I jumped in on the wānaka and doing that walk, and we'll be doing that walk in a couple of weeks with some tani through ka tohu tamaiti, or the signs of childhood, and moving into taiohi and exploring adolescence, and then into pakeke. And I think I farewelled you all as you were called into te whare o hine te iwi. They're standing at the waharo go, bye bye.
You'd let your babies go.
But a super privilege to walk with you all on that journey, and also to be there as you all explored your own childhood and all those, and your children. For us at the moment, it's a big thing looking at where our teenagers are at, and what's missing for them, and what is potentially going to support our teenagers to get through that tricky passage. Have you got some ideas there, Whaia, and what you've seen from the wānaka and where you want to move forward with this mahi?
I definitely have. There's so much learning. There's so much learning in the wānanga that we had, and I think it's the children that you're around at the time that actually show you in which way you should be moving. So I could pick one thing from the wānanga and say, this is actually the space that I'm going to really concentrate on at this time. But then I think it's the children that are around you that help to guide you to which space you're going to move first with, or really delve into deeply. I think it's hard to say that one of the most beautiful parts of it, because every part of the wānanga was beautiful, but I think something that is very helpful for our rangatahi is te wahanga I arohia te whatu manawa. Ka tahi nei te ātāhua. Toko maha ngā wahine I tangi I roto I tērā o ngā wahanga o te wānanga rā. He ātāhua. And that part, the part of the learning about the whatu manawa is for both. It's for both tani and wahine. And I think it's absolutely vital that everyone learns that part. If that was one part, if we were to choose just one part, the part about the whatumanua would probably be where there would be a lot of growth. If they were only allowed to learn one part of the wānanga, and it would definitely be the whatumanua, because it talks about how ngā ka mau ngā mea katoa ki te whatumanua. Ko ngā tuahuatanga o tō oranga, tō whakatipuranga, te nuinga o te wā, ka rongo koe ki tētahi mea e tino mamai, whakamamai a koe, ana ka urawa ki tō whatumanua. Experiences that I've had, whether they are beautiful or extremely traumatizing, ka urawa, ka mau ki tō whatumanua. And there was a part where there was a kupenga and the kōrero about scooping those moments of being traumatized and lifting them away from your whatumanua. Absolutely beautiful. I don't think I can do it justice talking about it, but I think if there was one thing that everyone could learn about, would be that. It leads on to everything else.
Tautoko. Tautoko katoa tia. You know, ia wānanga ka tīpako tētahi mea, you know, e whita ana. And ko te tuakiri, ko te tangata I tino pau ki au. And ka hui tahi au, mea ku tamariki ki te tuakiri o te tangata, engari te whatumanua, tika tonu. He wānanga ia.
Ai. He oranga hoki.
Yeah.
Mo te tangata.
And koina pia te pai o te noho tahi ki o hapori, o kāhui, o tino, o whanau ngā mea noho pātata nei ki a koe. Te tango, te wete, kia puta mai, kia hua mai.
Ai.
Yeah.
Hea tāhua. Hea tāhua. Koera ia te take I rerenga roimata o te toku aha. He whakawāte anō.
Yeah. Okay, Tiaki, we're coming back to your house to stay, bro.
Yeah, we've had heaps of messages about since that project interview, which I just want to say was a little bit misleading because Raewyn and Madeline didn't get mentioned on that one. Apparently, Tiaki's training facilitators all around the country. Motaku here, I don't think I said that, but that's the media for you. But huge mihi to yourself. Kōka Ray, and to your pa Harakeke down at Taupo ki Te Puko Tika, and for sharing today some of your whiako, whakaaro, pumahara mo tēnei kaupapa o ehine, me tēnei kaupapa o te tohi ki te taha o tō whānau ki au tamāhine, ki au whānau katoa, ki au tamariki katoa, ki tō kura hoki, no reira, tēnei mata o pautame e mihi nei.
Tēnā koe, tēnā kōrua, tēnā koutou e whakarongo mai ana, e mihi ana tēnei o ngā whaia, me te mea hoki I te tino maharahara hau, tino a mai, me te whakaro ake, heaha aku koha ki tēnei o ngā, ki tēnei o ngā hui, he oi, he tino pai te kōrero kia kōrua, me te mōhio kei te matakitaki itahi o tō tātou wānanga. Kei te hikaka hau kia hoki anō kia koutou. Ngā manaakitanga.